The Midwest, where the corn grows tall, the winters are brutal. And sometimes the guys running the local trucking company know a little more about business than they should. For decades, from Chicago to Milwaukee to Kansas City and Omaha, certain gentlemen in nice suits handled problems quietly, very quietly. And now, you can bring that same heartland problem-solving tradition into your own home. Introducing the Midwest Mob Problem Solver Kit, the only household product inspired by the legendary operations of the American Midwest. Inside every box you'll receive the Union Hall negotiation table, perfect for discussing contracts, debts, or who exactly forgot to pay their gambling tab. The Cornfield Privacy Guarantee, because sometimes certain conversations require a very quiet location. The Teamster's Timekeeper Stopwatch, used to measure exactly how long it takes someone to suddenly remember the truth. And of course, the Midwest Ledger of Favors, because around here, nobody forgets who owes who. But wait, there's more. Order today and we'll include the Emergency Alibi Generator, Midwest Edition. Spin the dial and instantly receive classic excuses like, I was at the bowling league. I was helping my cousin move snow. I was at the church fish fry. Or the Midwest Classic, I don't know nothing about that. Thousands of satisfied customers from Chicago to Kansas City agree. Sometimes problems don't require lawyers. Sometimes they just require the Midwest Mob Problem Solver Kit. Available now. Exclusively from Pizzaverse Studios and Palermo Productions. Because when things get complicated, the Midwest has always had a way of keeping things nice and quiet.
Mugs, what the fuck you doing in there, you prick?
Trash Wars, How the Mafia Controlled America's Garbage. A Pizzaverse Studios production. A Palermo Productions original. Written by Bambi Palermo. Narrated by Vincent D. Prio. The Hook. You ever drag your garbage to the curb? Tie the bag, toss it, and never think about it again. Yeah. That's exactly what they wanted. Because for decades, in places like New York, New Jersey, and Long Island, garbage wasn't just waste. It was a multi-billion-dollar racket, run by some of the most powerful crime families in America. We're talking fixed prices, rigged contracts, companies forced into submission, and guys who got a little too curious, vanishing like last week's trash. This ain't about sanitation. This is about control. This is Trash Wars. The rise of the carting cartel. By the 1970s, private sanitation in New York wasn't competitive. It was controlled. At the center of it all, the mob's grip on commercial carting, restaurants, construction sites, businesses. Not residential pickups. No. This was the real money. The system became known as the carting industry cartel. Companies didn't compete. They were assigned routes. Prices weren't negotiated. They were dictated. And if you try to undercut the system, you got visits. Sometimes polite, sometimes not. The five families take over. The racket wasn't run by amateurs. We're talking the heavy hitters. Gambino crime family. Genovese crime family. Lucchese crime family. Colombo crime family. Bonanno crime family. Each one with a piece of the garbage empire. Front companies, shell operations, legitimate businesses on paper. But underneath, extortion, kickbacks, threats, enforcement, how they kept control. You don't keep a monopoly without muscle. Independent haulers who refused to cooperate faced trucks set on fire, tires slashed, equipment destroyed, physical assaults, and sometimes worse. One name that kept popping up, James Galante, a major player tied to mob-controlled carting in the Northeast. He didn't just participate, he thrived in it.
You ever notice some problems just disappear? One day they're there. Next day, gone. No noise. No mess. No questions. That ain't luck. That's clean sweep disposal. We don't advertise. We don't ask. And we definitely don't leave things unfinished. Routes get cleared. Issues get handled. Situations get resolved permanently. Because around here, if it's still around, it's still a problem. Clean sweep disposal. Out of sight, out of mind. Sure. City stays clean, one way or another.
Price fixing and the property rights scheme. Here's where it gets real slick. The mob created something called property rights to customers. Meaning, if a carting company had a client, that client was off limits to everyone else. Forever. You didn't steal customers. You bought them. Or you got permission. Prices went through the roof. Businesses paid whatever they were told. Because the alternative wasn't worth it. The feds start watching. By the 1980s and early 90s, law enforcement started connecting the dots. Enter Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. They saw a pattern. Same companies, same families, same intimidation tactics. And they built one of the biggest organized crime cases in industry history. Operation Clean Sweep. The case that cracked it open? Operation Clean Sweep. A massive investigation into the mob's control of NYC's carting industry. Wiretaps. Undercover agents. Financial records. Years of work. And then, Indictments. Over 100 defendants tied to organized crime and carting companies. The commission case connection. This wasn't isolated. It tied directly into the bigger picture. Commission case. The federal takedown of the Five Families' leadership. That case exposed how deeply organized crime controlled industries. Construction. Labor unions. And yes, garbage. Unions, construction, and dirty money. The racket didn't stop at trash pickup. It connected to construction sites, union influence, dumping operations. Mob-backed companies controlled disposal contracts for demolition debris, industrial waste, hazardous materials. And that's where the real money was hiding. The fall of the cartel. After Operation Clean Sweep, the system started to crumble. New laws were introduced. Oversight increased. Carting companies were forced to compete legitimately, register with regulators, break mob ties, but let's not kid ourselves. The influence didn't disappear overnight. It just adapted. The real lesson. Here's the thing nobody tells you. The mob didn't choose garbage by accident. They chose it because it's everywhere. It's constant. And nobody pays attention to it. It's the perfect business. Invisible until it isn't. So next time you take out the trash, just remember, for decades, that simple act was part of a system controlled by some of the most powerful criminals in America. Routes, money, control, and behind every bag, a story nobody wanted you to hear. Credits. This has been a Pizzaverse Studios production, a Palermo Productions original. Written by Bambi Palermo. Narrated by Vincent Vinny DiPrio. If you made it this far, you already know. We don't do surface level over here. We name names. We break it down. And we tell the stories they'd rather keep buried. Hit subscribe. Drop a comment. And stay locked into the Pizzaverse, because we got a lot more coming.
Tay Wilkins, The Power Poise Collection. A Pizzaverse. Luxury line for women who run empires, and everybody knows it. Some broads walk in with a plan. Tay Wilkins? She walks in with the agenda. You don't just meet Tay, you get audited by her presence. The products: Executive Energy, Cologne Spray. Smells like competence, ambition, and just a dash of fear. Notes: Vanilla Ledger, Steel Espresso, and the tears of middle management. Deadline red lipstick stays on longer than your excuses. One swipe, and you're instantly promoted, or at least respected out of fear. Boardroom Burn Candle. Scented with sandalwood, jet fuel, and faint regret. Perfect for conference calls or silent judgment. Respectfully unavailable planner, A sleek black book embossed with gold lettering. Every page says, "Not my problem." When deadlines crumble and weak men mumble, Tay Wilkins don't raise her voice, she raises productivity. She don't need validation, she is the performance review. And if you don't like it, file a complaint. She'll read it, laugh, and use it as a coaster. This ain't just fragrance, sweetheart. It's a corporate takeover. Smells like success, final warnings, and one-way tickets to unemployment. Confidence ain't loud. It's Tay Wilkins quiet in a room just by existing. Tay Wilkins, the Power Poise Collection. Grace under fire, style under oath.
You look at a skyline. Steel, glass, concrete. You see progress. We saw leverage. Because for decades, in New York City, Chicago, and across New Jersey, construction wasn't just business. It was controlled. Not by developers, not by the city, but by the families. Gambino crime family, Genovese crime family, Lucchese crime family. They didn't just build the city. They decided who got to build it. Every contract, every union, every truck that pulled up to a job site had a price. You wanted concrete? You used their supplier. You wanted labor? You used their guys. You wanted to stay in business? You played along. Because if you didn't, projects stalled. Costs exploded. And accidents. They called it influence. We call it what it was, control. Through unions like International Brotherhood of Teamsters, through no-show jobs, through bid rigging. They turned construction into a machine, one that printed money, and crushed anyone who stepped out of line. Then the heat came down. Wiretaps. Undercover agents. Years of surveillance. Cases like Commission Case started pulling the curtain back. And suddenly, the same hands pouring concrete were the ones getting cuffed. But here's the thing. You don't just remove something that deep and expect it to disappear. Because when you look at a skyline, you're not just looking at buildings, you're looking at deals, power, and a system built on fear. The mob and the construction industry. Concrete, corruption, control. You don't build a city without getting your hands dirty. Coming soon.
A good father, two sons and a daughter.